Hello and welcome. In this episode we will learn about Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was a brave and curious man. He lived a long time ago, in the 15th century. Many people believed the world was flat, but Columbus thought the world was round. He wanted to prove this and find a new way to reach Asia. He did not give up, even when people laughed at his ideas. His story teaches us about dreams, courage, and never giving up. Columbus was born in Genoa, a city in Italy. As a young boy, he loved the sea. He dreamed of becoming a great sailor. He read books, studied maps, and learned from other sailors. He believed there was a faster way to reach the east by sailing west. This idea was very new and different. It was risky, but Columbus believed in himself. He asked many kings and queens for help to go on a big sea journey. Most of them said no. They did not trust his plan. But Columbus did not stop trying. After many years, Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain said yes. They gave him 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. With these ships, Columbus sailed into the unknown ocean. In 1492, after many weeks at sea, Columbus saw land. He had discovered a new world, what we now call the Americas. He thought he had reached Asia, but he was wrong. Still, it was a great moment in history. His journey changed the world. It brought Europe and the Americas together for the first time. Columbus was not a perfect man. He made mistakes, and some of his actions hurt people. But his courage to explore and follow his dream made a big impact. He showed that one person with a big idea can change the world. Today, we remember Columbus as a man who dared to do something no one had done before. His story inspires students, dreamers, and explorers all around the world. He teaches us to believe in our dreams, to ask questions, and to keep going, even when it is hard. As we begin this episode, let us learn about the life of Christopher Columbus. Not only the journeys he made, but also the lessons we can take from his story. Let his example encourage you to explore, to learn, and to be brave in your own life. Chapter 1: Early Life and Ambitions of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was born in the year 1451 in Genoa, a city in Italy. His father was a wool weaver, and his mother took care of the home. Christopher had 3 brothers and 1 sister. As a young boy, he helped his father with work, but he always dreamed of something bigger. He loved the sea and wanted to become a sailor. Columbus did not go to school for many years, but he learned many things by himself. He read books about the sea, maps, and faraway lands. He listened to stories from sailors and travelers. These stories made him want to see the world. He was very curious and always asked questions. He wanted to know what was beyond the ocean. At the age of 14, Columbus started working on ships. He traveled to many places near Italy and Spain. He learned how to sail, how to read the stars, and how to stay safe at sea. He became a good sailor and learned from every journey. These early travels made him strong and brave. During this time, people in Europe wanted to find a quicker way to reach Asia. They wanted spices, silk, and gold from the east. But the land route was long and dangerous. Columbus had a bold idea. He believed he could reach Asia faster by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. This idea was new, and many people did not believe him. They thought the ocean was too big and too dangerous. But Columbus was sure. He believed the world was round, not flat. He believed there was land across the sea. He dreamed of leading a great journey to find it. This dream became his life's goal. He wanted to become a great explorer and make history. He tried to get help for his journey. He spoke to kings and queens in Europe. Most of them said no. They did not believe his plan would work. But Columbus did not give up. He waited, he planned, and he kept trying. He believed in himself and his dream. This was the early life of Christopher Columbus, a boy from a small city, full of big dreams. He wanted to explore, to learn, and to change the world. He was not rich or powerful, but he had a strong heart and a clear goal. His story shows us that even someone with a simple beginning can do great things with courage and hard work. In the next chapter, we will see how Columbus finally found someone who believed in him and helped him begin his famous journey. Chapter 2. The Road to Royal Patronage of Christopher Columbus. After many years of sailing and learning, Christopher Columbus had a big dream. He wanted to find a new way to reach Asia by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. He believed this way would be faster and safer. But he could not do it alone. He needed money, ships, and men. For this, he needed the help of a king or queen. Columbus first went to the King of Portugal. He shared his idea and asked for support. But the king said no. He did not believe Columbus's plan would work. He thought the journey was too long and too risky. Columbus was disappointed, but he did not give up. Next, Columbus went to Spain. He asked King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella for help. They listened, but they also said no at first. They were busy fighting a war at the time. Columbus waited many months. He talked to many people and tried to make them believe in his dream. He even went to other countries like France and England, but no one said yes. Still, Columbus did not lose hope. He returned to Spain and asked again. This time, Queen Isabella became interested. She talked to her advisors. Some of them liked Columbus's plan, but others did not. They said the world was too big and Columbus would never reach Asia by sailing west. Columbus tried to prove them wrong. He used maps and numbers. He said the journey would not be too long. He promised to bring back gold, spices, and new lands for Spain. He also said he would spread Christianity in the new lands. These promises made Queen Isabella think again. In 1492, after many years of trying, Columbus finally heard the good news. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand agreed to help him. They signed a special paper called the Capitulations of Santa Fe. This gave Columbus money and power for the journey. He would get 3 ships and be made admiral of the ocean sea. If he found new lands, he would become the ruler of those places and receive a part of the riches. This was a big moment in Columbus's life. After many rejections and many years of waiting, someone finally believed in him. The dream that once seemed impossible was now close to becoming real. Columbus thanked the king and queen. He got ready for the great journey. He found sailors, prepared the ships, and made a plan. He knew the ocean was wide and dangerous, but he was not afraid. He had the support of the Spanish crown, and he was ready to follow his dream. This chapter shows how Columbus never gave up. Even when people said no again and again, he kept going. His strong belief in his idea helped him find royal support. In the next chapter, we will follow Columbus as he begins his first voyage across the unknown ocean. Chapter 3. Preparations and the First Voyage of Christopher Columbus. After Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand of Spain said yes to Christopher Columbus, he was very happy. Now, his dream could begin. But first, he had to prepare for a long and dangerous journey across the ocean. He needed ships, supplies, and a strong crew. The king and queen gave Columbus 3 ships. Their names were the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. The Santa Maria was the biggest ship. Columbus chose this one as his main ship. The other 2 were smaller and faster. He also needed food, water, tools, and maps. The ships were filled with barrels of fresh water, dried food, and other supplies for the trip. Columbus asked many sailors to join him. Some were excited, but others were afraid. They had never sailed so far from land. Some people still believed the world was flat. They thought the ships might fall off the edge. But Columbus told them to be brave. He believed the world was round and that they would find land across the sea. On August 3, 1492, the 3 ships left the port of Palos in Spain. Columbus and his crew sailed into the Atlantic Ocean. At first, the journey was calm. They stopped at the Canary Islands to fix the ships and get more supplies. Then, they sailed into the deep ocean. As days passed, the sailors became worried. They saw only water. They did not know how far they had to go. Some men became scared and angry. They wanted to go back to Spain. But Columbus gave them hope. He told them they were close to finding land. He kept looking at the sea and the sky, watching for signs. He saw birds flying and small branches floating, which meant land could be near. Finally, on the night of October 11, 1492, a sailor named Rodrigo de Triana saw something in the distance. "Land!" he shouted. The next morning, they reached an island. Columbus called it San Salvador. He believed he had reached islands near Asia, but he was wrong. He had found a part of the world that was new to Europe, the Americas. Columbus and his men went on land. They saw green trees, clean water, and new people. These were the native people of the island. Columbus called them Indians, because he thought he was in the Indies, near Asia. He gave them gifts like beads and bells. The native people were kind and gave food in return. Columbus explored the area and visited other islands like Cuba and Hispaniola. He looked for gold and other riches. After some weeks, the Santa Maria hit a rock and sank. Columbus and his men used the other two ships to return to Spain. This first voyage was the beginning of a new chapter in world history. Columbus had crossed the ocean and found a new land. He was proud, and Spain was ready to hear his story. In the next chapter, we will learn about his return and how people reacted to his great journey. Chapter 4: Discovery of the New World of Christopher Columbus. After many weeks at sea, Christopher Columbus and his sailors were tired and worried. They had left Spain in August 1492, and now it was October. Every day, they saw only the blue ocean. Some men thought they would never find land. But Columbus did not give up. He believed they were close to something new and important. On the night of October 11, 1492, everything changed. A sailor named Rodrigo de Triana was watching the sea from the ship. Suddenly, he saw something. It looked like land. He shouted, "Land! Land!" Everyone was excited. They had finally found something after many weeks on the ocean. The next morning, on October 12, Columbus and his men reached the shore. They stepped onto a beautiful island with green trees, white sand, and clear water. Columbus named the island San Salvador, which means Holy Savior in Spanish. He believed he had reached part of Asia. He did not know he had discovered a new continent. The people living on the island came to see the strangers. These native people had brown skin and wore simple clothes. They had never seen ships or people like Columbus and his men. Columbus thought he had reached islands near India, so he called the people Indians. Columbus gave the natives gifts like red hats, glass beads, and bells. The natives gave food, feathers, and small gold ornaments in return. Columbus was happy. He wrote in his journal that the people were friendly and peaceful. He also saw signs of gold and believed he could find more. After exploring San Salvador, Columbus sailed to other nearby islands. He visited Cuba and Hispaniola. He saw new animals, plants, and ways of life. He met more native people and tried to learn about them. Everywhere he went, he looked for gold and treasures. On Hispaniola, one of his ships, the Santa Maria, hit a rock and broke. Columbus used the wood to build a small fort called La Navidad. He left some of his men there and promised to return. Then, with the other two ships, the Nina and the Pinta, he sailed back to Spain. Columbus believed he had reached the edge of Asia. But in fact, he had found a new world, lands that were unknown to Europe. This was the first time people from Europe had visited the Americas. It was a very important moment in world history. The discovery of this new world would change the future. It started a new connection between Europe and the Americas. Many more ships and people would follow after Columbus. New goods, ideas, and cultures would move across the ocean. In this chapter, Columbus became the first European to discover the islands of the Caribbean. He did not know it at the time, but his journey had opened the door to a new world. In the next chapter, we will learn about how Columbus returned to Spain and how people reacted to his great discovery. Chapter 5: Encounters with Indigenous Peoples of Christopher Columbus. When Christopher Columbus arrived on the island of San Salvador in October 1492, he and his men saw people who looked very different from them. These people were the indigenous peoples, the first people who lived on these islands. They had brown skin, dark hair, and wore simple clothes made of plants. They had never seen people like Columbus before, and they had never seen ships that big. The native people were kind and peaceful. They welcomed Columbus and his men with smiles and open hands. Columbus gave them gifts like red hats, glass beads, and bells. The natives were happy and gave food, feathers, and small pieces of gold in return. Columbus wrote in his journal that the people were friendly and could become good friends of Spain. The indigenous people lived simple lives. They grew food like corn, sweet potatoes, and beans. They fished in the sea and hunted small animals. They lived in small houses made of wood and leaves. They did not use metal tools or ride horses. Their lives were very different from the lives of people in Europe. Columbus was very interested in gold. When he saw the natives wearing small gold ornaments, he asked where the gold came from. The people pointed to other islands. Columbus wanted to find more gold, so he continued his journey. He visited islands like Cuba and Hispaniola, meeting more native people along the way. At first, most of the meetings with the indigenous people were peaceful. Columbus tried to learn about their language and customs. He took notes and told his men to treat the natives with respect. But he also believed that these people could work for Spain. He thought they could be taught to speak Spanish and follow the Christian religion. As the days passed, some problems started. Columbus wanted more gold, but the natives did not have much. Some of the Spanish men became greedy and rude. They took things without asking. This made the native people afraid and angry. On the island of Hispaniola, Columbus built a small fort called La Navidad using wood from his broken ship, the Santa Maria. He left some of his men there and told them to be kind to the natives. But after Columbus left, the men were not kind. When Columbus returned later, the fort was destroyed and his men were gone. This made Columbus very sad and worried. He started to think that he would need to use force to protect the new land. This was the beginning of a difficult time between the Europeans and the native people. The first encounters were full of peace and hope. But soon, misunderstandings and greed caused problems. Still, these meetings were important. They were the first connection between two very different worlds. In the next chapter, we will learn how Columbus returned to Spain and how the people there reacted to his great adventure. Chapter 6: The Return to Spain and Recognition of Christopher Columbus. After many months of travel, discovery, and meeting new people, Christopher Columbus was ready to return to Spain. It was early 1493. He had found new islands, met the native people, and collected some gold, plants, animals, and other goods. He wanted to go back and tell King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella everything he had seen. Columbus had started his journey with 3 ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. But now, only the Nina and the Pinta were left. The Santa Maria had broken on rocks near the island of Hispaniola. Columbus used the wood from the ship to build a small fort called La Navidad, and he left some men there. In January 1493, Columbus and the other 2 ships began the journey back to Spain. The trip across the Atlantic Ocean was not easy. There were strong winds and storms. At one point, Columbus thought the ships might sink. He even wrote down everything he had done so far and put the papers in a barrel. He threw the barrel into the sea, hoping someone would find it if he died. But Columbus and his men were lucky. After many hard days, they reached the shores of Spain in March 1493. Columbus was proud and excited. He had done something no European had done before. He had crossed the Atlantic and found new lands. When Columbus arrived in Spain, people were amazed. News of his journey spread very fast. Everyone wanted to know what he had seen. He brought back new plants, colorful birds, and a few native people from the islands. These things made people curious and excited. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were very happy. They welcomed Columbus with honor. They gave him a parade and many gifts. He was called Admiral of the Ocean Sea, just like they had promised. He was also given a special seat at royal meetings. Columbus had become a hero. The king and queen wanted to hear every detail. Columbus told them about the beautiful islands, the friendly people, and the gold he had found. He said there were more lands to explore and more treasures to discover. The rulers of Spain were pleased. They now wanted to send more ships and men to the new lands. Columbus had made history. His dream had come true. He had crossed the unknown ocean and returned safely. People across Europe now believed that a new world was waiting to be explored. The return of Columbus was not just the end of a journey. It was the beginning of many more. His success gave hope to many others. Spain now had a chance to grow stronger and richer by exploring more of the world. In the next chapter, we will learn about Columbus's second voyage and how he tried to build colonies in the New World. Chapter 7: The Second Voyage and Colonization Efforts of Christopher Columbus. After his first voyage, Christopher Columbus became very famous in Spain. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella were very happy with his discovery. They wanted him to return to the new lands quickly. This time, they gave him more support. Columbus was now ready for a second voyage, but this journey would be much bigger than the first one. In 1493, just a few months after returning, Columbus set sail again. This time, he had 17 ships and over 1,000 men. These men were not just sailors. They were soldiers, farmers, priests, and people who wanted a new life. They carried tools, seeds, animals, and everything needed to build homes and towns. Spain now wanted to start colonies in the New World. The second voyage began in September 1493. The ships crossed the Atlantic Ocean again. The journey was easier this time because they already knew the way. In November, Columbus and his fleet reached the Caribbean islands. They visited places like Dominica, Guadeloupe, and again Hispaniola, the island where Columbus had left men at a small fort called La Navidad. But when Columbus arrived at La Navidad, he was shocked. The fort was gone. The men he left behind had been killed. The local native people had fought with the Spanish men, likely because they were treated badly. This made Columbus very sad and angry. He decided to build a new, stronger settlement. He named it La Isabela, after Queen Isabella of Spain. This became the first European town in the Americas. Life in La Isabela was not easy. The land was hot, food was short, and many men became sick. The settlers were not used to the climate or the new plants and animals. They also had trouble with the native people. Some native groups did not want the Spanish to stay. They wanted to protect their land and people. Columbus tried to control the situation. He sent his men to look for gold. He also made the native people work for the Spanish, which caused more anger and fighting. The dream of a peaceful new land became more difficult. Even with these problems, Columbus continued exploring. He sailed around the islands, looked for more gold, and tried to spread Christianity. He believed he was close to Asia and wanted to find it soon. But he also had to take care of the colony and report to the king and queen. The second voyage showed that making a colony was not easy. Columbus had big hopes, but many things went wrong. Still, this journey was important. It was the beginning of European colonization in the Americas. More people from Europe would come, and the world would change forever. In the next chapter, we will learn about the challenges Columbus faced, how people began to question him, and how he lost control of his dream. Chapter 8: Challenges, Rebellion, and Arrest of Christopher Columbus. After building the first colony in the New World during his second voyage, Christopher Columbus faced many problems. What started as a great dream soon became very difficult. Life in the new land was not easy for Columbus or the people who came with him. The colony of La Isabela had many troubles. The land was hard to farm, and the weather was very hot. Many settlers became sick or hungry. Some of them died. The Spanish people who came with Columbus started to complain. They said Columbus did not know how to lead. They were unhappy and angry. At the same time, There were also problems with the native people. Columbus and his men wanted gold and workers. They made the natives work too hard and treated them badly. This led to fighting between the Spanish and the natives. Many people on both sides were hurt or killed. The Spanish settlers began to rebel. They did not listen to Columbus anymore. Some of them left the colony and made their own rules. Columbus tried to stop them, but he had lost their trust. His brothers, who helped him lead the colony, also had a hard time controlling the people. Back in Spain, news of these problems reached the king and queen. Some men who had been with Columbus returned to Spain and told the rulers bad things about him. They said he was a bad leader, that he was cruel, and that the colony was falling apart. The king and queen were worried. They had given Columbus a lot of power, but now they thought he might be failing. So, in 1500, they sent a man named Francisco de Bobadilla to Hispaniola. Bobadilla was sent to check what was happening and to take control if needed. When Bobadilla arrived, he spoke to many people. He listened to their complaints and made a decision. He arrested Columbus and his 2 brothers. He put them in chains and sent them back to Spain on a ship. Columbus felt ashamed and hurt. He had followed his dream, crossed the ocean, and found new lands. Now, he was a prisoner. When he arrived in Spain, people were surprised to see him in chains. Many felt sorry for him. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand were also shocked. They removed the chains and said Columbus could be free, but they did not give him his power back. He was no longer the governor of the new lands. This was a very sad time for Columbus. He had started with big hopes and dreams. He had discovered new lands, but he had lost control of them. His actions and the problems in the colony had made many people turn against him. In the next chapter, we will learn about Columbus's final voyage and how he tried once more to follow his dream, even after losing everything. Chapter 9. The Final Voyage and Disillusionment of Christopher Columbus. After being arrested and losing his power, Christopher Columbus still had one wish: to go back to the New World. He believed there were more lands to discover. He also still believed he could find a sea path to Asia. Even though he was no longer governor, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella allowed him to make one more voyage. In 1502, Columbus began his 4th and final voyage. He was now older and weaker, but his dream was still strong. He left Spain with 4 small ships and around 140 men. This time, he was told not to stop at Hispaniola, where many people were still angry with him. Columbus wanted to find a way to Asia through the Caribbean Sea. He sailed along the coast of Central America, visiting places that are now part of Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama. He looked for a river or a sea that could take him to the riches of the East, but he could not find one. The journey was very hard. There were strong storms, high waves, and heavy rain. The ships were old and started to break. The sailors were tired and scared. They had little food and clean water. Many became sick, and some even died. At one point, the ships were badly damaged, and Columbus and his men were trapped on the island of Jamaica. They stayed there for over a year. The men were hungry and unhappy. They waited for help, but no ships came from Spain. Columbus used clever ideas to stay friendly with the local people and get food, but it was a sad and lonely time. Finally, a rescue ship came and took them back to Hispaniola, and from there they returned to Spain in 1504. Columbus was tired, sick, and very disappointed. His final voyage had not brought him the success he hoped for. He had not found a sea path to Asia. He had not found great riches. He had not rebuilt his lost honor. Back in Spain, Columbus received little attention. Queen Isabella died soon after his return. King Ferdinand was busy with other matters. Columbus had no more power and no important job. He wrote letters asking for money and help, but he was mostly ignored. In 1506, Christopher Columbus died in Spain. He was about 55 years old. He never knew that he had discovered a new continent. He died thinking he had reached the edge of Asia. He never saw the great impact of his journeys on the world. Columbus's final years were full of sadness and disillusionment. He had followed his dream across the ocean, but in the end, he felt forgotten. Still, his courage and passion for exploration opened the door for many others. In the next chapter, we will look at how Columbus's legacy grew after his death and how the world remembers him today. Chapter 10: Death, Legacy, and Controversy of Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus spent the last years of his life in Spain, feeling sick, weak, and forgotten. After his fourth and final voyage, he did not return as a hero. He had lost his power, his titles, and the support of many people. He wrote letters to the king asking for rewards and respect, but most of his requests were not answered. On May 20, 1506, Columbus died in the city of Valladolid, Spain. He was about 55 years old. He died thinking he had found a new path to Asia. He never knew that he had discovered lands that were part of a new continent, what we now call the Americas. After his death, Columbus was buried in Spain. Later, his remains were moved more than once. Some people say he was buried in Seville, while others say he was moved to Santo Domingo in the Caribbean. Even today, people are not sure where his body truly rests. Though Columbus died without great honor, his legacy grew over time. His first journey in 1492 changed the world forever. He opened the way for Europeans to explore and settle in the Americas. New plants, animals, goods, and ideas were shared between the Old World and the New. This is known as the Columbian Exchange. Columbus's voyages helped Spain become rich and powerful. Many other explorers followed him. They crossed the ocean, built colonies, and changed the lives of the people living there. Columbus is remembered for his courage and his belief in his dream. Without his journey, the world might have stayed separate for many more years. But Columbus's story is not only one of success. Today, many people also talk about the controversies in his life. When Columbus came to the New World, he met native people who had lived there for thousands of years. At first, the meetings were peaceful, but later there were fights, mistreatment, and suffering. Some of Columbus's actions caused pain to the native people. He took their land, made them work, and punished them when they did not listen. Many people died because of disease, war, and hard labor after the Europeans arrived. Because of this, some people see Columbus not as a hero, but as a symbol of colonialism and injustice. Today, people around the world have different views about Columbus. In some places, he is honored with statues and holidays like Columbus Day. In other places, people want to remove these honors and remember the native peoples instead. Some countries now celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day to tell the other side of the story. Christopher Columbus was a man with big dreams. He changed the world in ways he never expected. His life is remembered with both praise and criticism. His story teaches us about exploration, ambition, and also the need to treat all people with respect and fairness. His legacy lives on, not just in books, but in how we understand history today. Vocabularies. 1. Voyage, a long journey, especially by sea or in space. Example: Columbus began his voyage across the Atlantic in 1492. 2. Colony, a place that is ruled by another country and where people from that country come to live. Example: Columbus helped to build the first Spanish colony in the New World. 3. Explorer, a person who travels to unknown places to learn about them. Example: Christopher Columbus was a famous explorer. 4. Native, a person who was born in a particular place or whose family has always lived there. Example: Columbus met many native people on the islands he discovered. 5. Rebellion, when people fight against their leaders or government. Example: the Spanish settlers started a rebellion because they were unhappy. 6. Legacy, something important left behind by someone after they die. Example: Columbus left a legacy that changed the world forever. 7. Disillusionment, a feeling of being sad because something is not as good as you hoped. Example: Columbus felt disillusionment when he lost his power and respect. 8. Controversy, a strong disagreement about something that many people talk about. Example: there is much controversy about how Columbus treated native people. 9. Recognition, public respect or thanks for someone's work or success. Example: Columbus received recognition from the king and queen after his first voyage. 10. Mistreatment, the act of treating someone badly or unfairly. Example: the mistreatment of native people caused many problems during colonization. Quiz questions. 1. Where was Christopher Columbus born? 2. Who finally agreed to support Columbus's first voyage after many rejections? 3. What were the names of the 3 ships used on Columbus's first voyage? 4. What name did Columbus give to the first island he discovered in 1492? 5. What name did Columbus give to the native people he met? 6. What title was given to Columbus when he returned to Spain after his first voyage? 7. What was the name of the first European settlement Columbus built in the New World? 8. Who was sent by the king and queen to investigate Columbus and later arrested him? 9. On which island was Columbus stranded for over a year during his final voyage? 10. What is the term used for the exchange of plants, animals, and goods between Europe and the Americas after Columbus's voyages? Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed learning with us. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. Your support helps us grow and bring you more inspiring stories and easy English learning content. Do you have a topic you'd like us to cover in our next video? Maybe a famous person, an invention, or a country? Let us know in the comments or messages. We'd love to hear your ideas. You can find answers in the description. Thanks again, and keep learning with us. See you in the next video.